Hi, guys. Welcome. I'm Keisha, and I am a psychology major. And I created this channel to share psychology principles that I read in the Bible. So today's verse revolves around the story of Cain and Abel from Genesis chapter 4. So, for the intent of this video, though, I'm going to assume you already know the story. So today's verse comes from Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4, and I'm going to be reading from the NLT version of the Bible. It was by faith that Abel brought a more acceptable offering to God than Cain did. Abel's offering gave evidence that he was a righteous man, and God showed approval of his gifts. Although Abel is long dead, he still speaks by his example of faith. The word faith is the Greek word pistis, and pistis means faith from trust. That our actions are derived from our ability to trust. So, in this verse, we see that Abel is working to the best of his abilities, and he is also showing up in his relationship with God to the best of his abilities. So, Abel is showing us self trust. So, in that verse, we see that Abel has self trust. And then at the end of that verse, we see that God is showing us how to choose environments and people that are safe. So today I'm going to discuss what is self-trust, what are the barriers to self-trust, how do we cultivate self-trust, and what are the results of a life lived and built on self-trust. So, what is self trust? So, Psychology Today defines self trust as a firm reliance on my own integrity. And that is basically that I trust me. So, I trust me. It isn't believing that I somehow have all the answers. And it's also not holding myself to the standard of I'm going to do everything right. Instead, self trust is I have high standards, and based on those high standards, I have high achievements. And so, the other part of self trust is treating ourselves with kindness and respect, no matter the outcome. From this place of self compassion and kindness, that is where we can make positive changes to our life. So in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4, we see that Abel is working to the best of his abilities, and Abel is showing up in his relationships, his relationship with God, to the best of his abilities. And so Abel is displaying for us self-trust. So what are the barriers to self-trust? In that verse, we see that Abel is showing up and working his gifting, his purpose, his calling, his anointing, his problem that he is to solve in this world, that he's doing that to the best of his abilities. And he is also relationing. So he is showing up to his relationship with God, his relationship with people, his relationship to places, and he is showing up to the best of his ability. And so when we show up to the best of our ability, there are no guarantees. And so that means that that is an inherently vulnerable place to be in. It is how we should live our life, but understand that that place is a vulnerable place. And so that makes us a little sensitive to our triggers, things that are going to be barriers to self trust. We are met with people that react negatively to us. So we experience judgment. Showing up to the best of our abilities, and we encounter people that reject us. They don't want to be with us. We encounter loss. We actually are abandoned. So the thing that is a barrier to showing up as our best selves are experiences with people and environments that give us negative experiences. So we see that self-trust is really this intrinsic thing that we bring to the world, but we notice that the things that become barriers to us bringing our best selves to the world are things that we experience from others. So, how do we cultivate self trust? Well, we understand that God made us interdependent, and that is the perfect balance between independence and dependence. So it was by faith that Abel brought a more acceptable sacrifice. So Abel is showing up as his best self, and he is relationing with God as his best self. And so we understand that self trust is intrinsic. And how it works is that we are actually displaying our self worth to the world. We bring our self worth and what we value into experiences with people and into places. So, how do we do that? Well, we become a good steward of the totality of who we are. We look at the totality of who we are without judgment. We also increase our ability to deal with regret. So we understand that regret is universal. The only people that don't experience regret are sociopaths. So you either are okay with a little regret or you are a sociopath. Seriously, we have to be a good steward of regret. Regret is information, so it is learning. Regret is the place that we get to practice self-compassion and forgiveness. Regret is where we make changes from this place of wholesomeness. Abel's offering gave evidence that he was a righteous man, and God showed approval of his gifts. So this is the dependent part of the interdependence. So in this dependence, we learn that we choose environments and people that actually value and appreciate us. We understand that healthy people don't sit around talking about people and judging others. We also understand that fear of rejection and fear of abandonment, that those things come from childhood where rejection and abandonment decreased our chances for survival. So as adults, we choose environments and people that edify us and appreciate us and value us. So what are the results of having self-trust? Well, we begin to speak with authority. We make choices with clarity and confidence. We understand that life is interdependence, which is dependence, meaning that we find safe environments and people to be with. And independence, we actually intrinsically understand that our value, our self-worth, our self-respect all are within. Increase our ability to look at our successes and failures as nothing more than learning experiences. So the results of self-trust is that we begin to show up like Abel. We begin to work to the best of our ability. We begin to relation to the best of our ability, and we begin to seek out environments that appreciate and value who we are as people. So that's it, self-trust. Let me know what you think. Bye-bye.